That wasn't me. It was the buffer. Anyway, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, the Church of Failure. I am your host, the Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is the trusty co-host who is about to go MIA, Ayrton McCartney.
I am.
And special. Motherfucker, let me finish the intro.
Sorry.
And
Jesus, you're going to get fired and we haven't even started.
Special guest co-host S.K. Barrett from the Dead Man Tone podcast. How you doing tonight, gentlemen?
Hello. Hey. Hands off my buffer, man.
Hello, HR?
Oh, man. I guess all streams are doomed today. I heard my buddy Q from Out of the Darkness was having some technical boomer issues on his show tonight.
Uh-oh.
Now we have a technical boomer on our show. Fantastic. So, SK, you want to tell the people while we're talking Mad Magazine tonight?
Because it's the only one I really read ever.
Besides Playboy, but we can't show that on
That's
stream.
not really technically a comic book, even though they did have comic artwork every issue.
We'll have to do that stream over on
70.
Bitwave.tv/Gospel of Comics.
Yeah. My sisters were all into the Archie Jughead stuff, and I was not so much a follower of the superhero comics, but man, I liked me some Mad Magazine, which probably isn't going to shock too many people.
I would hope not. So I've done a ton of research and found a ton of sources on this, and there is over 60 years of publishing history with Mad Magazine. So there's going to be a lot to go through, and we're not going to hit nearly all of it. So if the people want, we might have to revisit this topic at a later date. But we're going to hit some keynote parts. We're definitely going to go through as much of it as we possibly can.
And they're still going, right?
Yeah. Technically, yeah. DC Comics is still putting out Mad Magazine. I believe it's still quarterly. So, 4 issues a year. Now that is
interesting.
That is funny. That is part of one of the talking points that I have. I know, publication frequency is super exciting for you guys, but
I was just hoping we would cover
that. Sometimes I'll wake up in a cold sweat thinking about publication history. So, don't get me started, SK. I got hot flashes, got to go stand in front of the refrigerator. An old woman on menopause. All right. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a hormone joke. It's not worth pausing for.
Oh, God. This is going to be fun, guys. I'll try to keep it under control, but it's already been like herding cats. So the reason
drunk cats.
The reason that we are talking about Mad Magazine is because, contrary to what a lot of people think, Mad has not always been a magazine and television show. Mad Magazine actually started off in 1952 under EC Comics Publishing as a comic book. I'll bring up the cover of issue 1 for the people in the audience here. And one thing you'll notice that's just outright missing, we don't have Alfred E. Neuman in this comic book anywhere. Now, I figured that would be a fun place to start, and then we could kind of backtrack to EC Comics and the Comic Code and all of that stuff. What do you guys think?
Sure.
Works for me.
Everyone knows the iconic Alfred E. Newman head as basically the mascot of Mad Magazine and Mad TV and the Mad brand as a whole. But what people don't realize is that while he didn't appear in the comic book until issue 21, Alfred E. Newman's been around as just a political satire figure since 1930. He was actually co-opted by Harvey.
What?
Yeah, he was co-opted by Harvey Kurtzman.
Really?
Yeah, in what was it, 1957, I believe. Let me fact check that real quick. Alfred E. Newman. Yeah, 19. Oh, well, issue 21. So whatever the cover date for that would be when he first made his appearance. But yeah, he showed up in a political ad on a postcard for. I forget who Roosevelt was running against, but it was a picture of Alfred E. Newman going, "Sure, I'm with Roosevelt," and that was the gag. But,
I come not to bury him, but to praise him.
Right. And Harvey Kurtzman, the I don't know, editor for Mad Magazine, the chief artist for Mad Magazine in the first few runs of it, the first few series, he co-opted Alfred E. Newman's head as the mascot, and I think I've got the issue where he shows up for the first time, so we can we're all familiar with what he looks like today.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see what he looked like back in 1955. If we have a cover for that issue. No?
Didn't you tell me you had like 300 covers in your folder?
Yeah, it's I have the full collection of the magazines for resources, but now I'm just fucking all this up. What are you guys doing to me? I blame SK.
Hey,
off the top.
You didn't start drinking soon enough. That's the problem.
That's apparently the problem. I'm gonna have to catch up. I actually do have a website that gives you a history of the covers there, so I'll pull that down. Anyway, what do you guys? Oh no, that's not what I want.
Uh-oh.
Just keep talking.
It's funny. That's
This is going great, isn't it, SK?
Well, yeah.
so, man. You guys really have this nailed, man.
I figured we did. Comedic effect.
Exactly.
Finely tuned machine.
So while Church figures that out, SK, how old were you roughly, like, when you started reading it Mad regularly, and what like drew you to it initially as a youngster?
Oh, never mind. I was right. I wasn't an idiot. Woo!
I give SK a good interview question, then you have to butt in.
I wasn't even listening to the question. I was just excited that I wasn't wrong.
This time.
That is correct.
Yeah, so it would have been, late grade school, third, fourth, fifth grade kind of age. I probably saw it just on the grocery store magazine rack with my little brother and my friends. We'd go in there and we'd try and read as much as we could before getting chased off. Which was difficult with Mad Magazine because it was a magazine.
It was a lot bigger. I mean,
yeah.
So you were born a vagrant, is what you're telling me.
Not vagrant. No, we were actually really poor. growing
Nah.
up. So, to get an issue of Mad Magazine required a significant effort on my part. And so, it was also, like a really good value for the money because it was a magazine.
There
And
we
you
go.
could, and there was so much to it, so many little details in every frame that you could just spend hours and hours poring over it, finding new stuff. So one, it was funny as hell. It was sarcastic. It was poking fun at every fucking thing in the world, and which I loved. And and I could just keep reading it and keep reading it and keep reading it.
I just want to put everyone's attention to the screen real quick. I did find Alfred E. Newman on the cover of this book. The cover was was drawn like an advertisement page. That's why it confused me. Now this is
Alfred E. Newman mask.
yeah, but look who's to the left of him there,
Stalin
and Hitler. Yeah, Marilyn Monroe as well. I don't know who the guys on the right are.
Well, yeah. Oh, come on, really?
I don't.
Jerry Lewis. That's Jerry Lewis
Okay.
and Dean Martin.
Oh, that's why we have a boomer on the show.
See, SK, me and Church grew up with like digital radios.
Yeah, CDs.
My radio had a speaker that's about the size of the camera lens on my phone. I couldn't understand any lyrics.
One thing that I think
it was like ASMR. It was like,
yeah,
tonight.
You're taking it back.
Like
you're taking it back, Aaron. Calm down. But I do like the fact that they have labels under these masks: Mad Monster for Hitler, Devil for Stalin, Idiot for Alfred E. Newman, Blonde Beauty for Moreau, Comic for, I'm guessing that's Jerry Lewis, and no label for the one on the
T.
far.
Martin has nothing.
Yeah, just nothing.
Good,
and he's on. Yeah, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin are only $1. So
can we just point out the midget camera and amazing midget wrist radio above that?
Right. Powerful.
Oh, those fuckers were sold and variations on these mini little spike cameras. Those were for sale in every magazine.
Yeah.
I mean, every comic book and every carnival had some of those for sale, or to win as a prize.
And they were all shit.
Of course they were. They might have only been a couple of dollars in the magazine, but they, which was more money then, obviously, but they were still really shitty cameras.
Now, one thing I do like about this is the first cover that Alfred E. Newman appeared on. And
wait, hold on, you can get a fucking Gatling gun?
Yeah. Well, this is the cover. It's all bullshit. You can get a 6-shot automatic blank gun. Yeah, this is the cover. This is how they designed it. Broadcast through your radio.
And compressed air torpedo.
Uh-huh.
Wow. I want that.
Right. So, Donka in the chat. Thank you for stopping in, Donka. We appreciate you. Could be the real Tonka Saw. Who knows? But, the real midget gun down there at the bottom. 2-passenger midget rocker or racer car. Real car, $1.50.
Okay. With all these references to midgets, did Jesse help write the cover for this?
Probably. For those of you that don't know, Jesse's from the Dead Man Tone podcast has a midget problem. They won't leave him alone.
A big midget problem.
I didn't mean any offense, Donka. I just said that you were the true non-imposter. That's what I was getting at. Oh, come on.
Would you like some fire water, Donka, to make up for it?
So.
Oh man.
So that's the first cover.
Hilarious in those. Because those. What's funny about that ads, of course, what really makes a lot of what Mad Magazine did work is because it was satire, and to be effective satire has to be somewhat based in reality,
right? Somewhat based on fact,
and yeah, it has to have some tie-in to people's experience, and those ads were just perfect satire of actual comic book ads.
Oh yeah, and Ayrton and I have talked about these before when we've read old comics on the Tales from the Back issue bin. Some of the old ads, like
those ads are great.
Yeah, I really wish that I could order my 1,000 Army Man set for $1 still.
Oh.
Although I did find those moon shoes for sale, so remember that.
I still have not gotten my X-ray glasses.
What about your decoder ring?
That I got from I think it was Kicks.
Right? Oh, okay. Cereal or Cracker Jack?
Either way.
Yeah.
I blame loot boxes for the fact that Cracker Jack prizes are bullshit now.
Right?
Who do you blame?
Loot boxes. Video game loot boxes.
I don't know that.
it's a big to do. A lot of people are all pissed off about loot boxes in video games. They say it encourages gambling because somehow your child has to be able to get a hold of your credit card and buy these things, and then it's predatory. But if you're not being a good enough parent to keep your credit card number away from your kid who plays a game with loot boxes on it, that's your own fucking problem. Just don't play the fucking game if you don't like it. Like that's capitalism.
I have a tendency to agree with you on that. Raise your kids to not steal from you. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, like my thing is
that crazy?
I while everybody is on the train of blaming loot boxes for stuff, though, I'm blaming them for Cracker Jack prizes.
Why?
Why not? Everybody else is blaming them. I feel like I can get better Cracker Jack prizes.
Well, see, yeah, I was trying to figure this out because Cracker Jack prizes went to shit long before video games.
Yeah, but they were even less. They were less shit like in my childhood than they are now, at least. Nowadays, it's just a fucking like sticker and a piece of paper that you fold over, and you get a president head. Like, woo! Sorry, that was a tangent. I apologize. Let's get back to the topic of the show. I'm salty about fucking Cracker Jacks. Okay, it's your fault.
I mean, if we're gonna have a show with lots of tangents, it should be the one about Mad Magazine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it does fit. But this is every show, Eric. Don't try and sugarcoat it. This is just what we do.
Good point.
We decide to get drunk and have a talk and live stream it and give it a title. That's all this is.
Hey, I'm down to my last beer, so if I get drunk off of one beer, that's a problem. Everywhere was closed before, like on my way home, so I couldn't get any more.
Yeah,
you're just not. Yeah, he's just not committed to his alcoholism.
You can't just dabble in that shit.
No, but my nicotine addiction is at like peak levels. So
So, being the comics guy here, I figure let's go back in time now that we've seen Alfred E. Newman first showing up. Let's talk about how.
man, we need a sound effect of the TARDIS.
Yeah, let's see how. Well, you've got to work on a soundboard, but I figure we'll get you off the fucking rotary phone first.
Good point.
Anyway.
Ring, ring, ring. Marge, can you connect me to church?
But no, Jesus Christ. Anyway, we talked briefly about EC Comics in the episode we did on the Platinum Age of Comics. If you haven't seen that already, you should go watch it because I feel like it's one of our better episodes. Definitely
More
started
planned
off.
out episodes.
No, this was planned out. It's just I didn't plan on you being here, so having you two in the
I didn't plan on being here.
having you two in the peanut gallery is really fucking me up a little bit. But anyway, we'll go back in time and think about EC Comics and the Platinum Age of Comics. Now, EC started off doing educational comics. Now, while they did,
what the E stands for?
Actually, E stands for entertaining comics, but good on you. Now, after the son, William Maxwell Gaines, which again, I'm going to take an aside to talk about how awesome is it to be named Max Gaines.
Especially if you're an audio engineer.
Right. Well, especially if you're a weightlifter. Think about that. Fucking swole over
Or a
here.
competitive eater.
Here you go. Why not all three?
Pie eating champion.
Why not all three? But
Why not?
his son took it
Max
over and
Gaines.
started publishing some more risque horror comics, crime comics, stuff like that. And then the 40s came, and so did Frederick Wortham. And then he brought the Comics Code Authority down on comic books, which we talked about on the Dead Man's Tome while you weren't there, SK.
Yeah.
So
I remember some discussion of that.
Oh, were you there?
We've talked about it. Well, we've
Yeah.
talked about it intermediately on other shows that I think SK's been on stuff too.
I don't know if he was on the
Yeah.
episode or not. That was before I even started doing this show. I was
I'm
probably
surprised you even remember it.
I remember the topic. I saved it in the video playlist. But anyway, Frederick Wortham.
You know what's interesting?
Go
What's
ahead.
interesting about that code is that people are still trying to do that kind of shit,
Well,
even
people are-
today.
people are trying
They
to
just
do it, but-
repackage this censorship under new labels,
Well, yeah.
and then the industry, because oh god, there's shit out there that I don't like. We must stop that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's goddamn. That's something that every industry has done at this point. Comic books, movies, fucking video
Music.
games, music. Yeah, the ESRB rating for video games, the MA rating for fucking music. Censorship's always been a thing.
Television.
But the funny thing about these are all instruments of self-censorship from the individual unions that set up this media. All
Yeah,
of these industries censor themselves.
to forestall government censorship,
Right. Well,
or
and
at
that,
least under
yeah.
pressure from government.
right. It does stall that, but the thing about it is when the comic code came down, EC Comic almost just completely fell under because that was their bread and butter with horror and crime comics. I mean, they had banned words like weird, terrifying, horror, like just flat out ban them. And then they banned themes aside with that. Like you couldn't have bad guys winning ever, even if they lost in the next issue. So you couldn't even have like 2-part issues anymore where it seemed like the bad guy got away.
Reminds me of an old George Carlin joke where this professor gets up in front of his class first day of school and goes, "There are 2 words I don't want to ever hear in my class, and those words are weird and cool." And one of the students goes, "Crazy, man, what are they?"
Jesus Christ. Anyway, after the Comics Code came about, EC Comics took a major hit, and one of their surviving titles was Mad Magazine. Now, some of their publication did move to magazine format shortly thereafter, and Mad Magazine was one of them. And Nick Rekieta always says, lead with your mistakes. So on that stream, I was under the impression, as are many other people, that the Comic Code was the reason that Mad Magazine took a shift towards being a magazine over a comic book. But what I've found in the research that I was doing was that after 24 issues in 1955, Mad converted to a magazine because Harvey Kurtzman got an offer from Paget Magazine to come over there. And in an effort to keep Kurtzman on Mad Magazine and EC Comics, Gaines basically folded and said, we'll do a magazine. So that's the story, and that's noted in it.
So it was an incentive to keep his top guy in the fold.
Right, because I mean, in this time frame, I mean, this is like Mad Men style times. Still, I mean, This is the early 50s still. So I mean, anybody that watched Mad Men, they know what kind of guys these were, and these guys were, very highly sought after if they were successful. And with successful, I mean, just looking at the numbers, by 1961, Mad Magazine was pushing a million plus issues apiece. So, I mean, Eric and I have talked about publication numbers in comic books, and I don't know if we ever touched on why those numbers just completely started to fall by the wayside, but some of the things that really stand out, especially for a title like Mad Magazine, is that obviously when they put out a TV show based on the type of material in the book, you're going to lose readership because people are lazy. Am I off on that? Yeah. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing, Carter? Well, I mean, asphalt over there?
No, that's what happens when you smoke a lot of cigars, is you get a lot of phlegm buildup.
Oh, okay. Take care of that right on air, then.
But
go ahead.
Hey, I wasn't expecting it to hit all of a sudden like that, all right? No, but I mean, same thing, like growing up, it's hard to keep track of all those comics, but we had the Justice League cartoon, the X-Men animated series, and it made it a lot easier to be able to enjoy these characters without having to go out and buy all these comics and like read everything. And yeah, I'm definitely with you on that point there.
What was the point?
That television and other media kill the publication.
You lost me at phlegm.
Jesus Christ.
Damn it, SK.
Ayrton, are you sure you have to go? I don't know. I
don't think he wants to be left alone.
I mean,
the flights are booked, the rooms are paid for. I mean,
I I got Atomic Denny coming on next Saturday. I don't even know who's coming on Sunday. Like, the channel might just be gone by the time you get back. I might have just deleted everything from the internet. No Twitter, no Facebook, no freaking YouTube. Disappear, hiding in shame.
See, I figure you're just going to accidentally delete the entire internet.
I've already done that this week.
You need to talk to your operator Marge about this.
You know what?
So, Mad Magazine took off shortly thereafter the Comic Code Authority was actually founded. 1954, they had put out 9 bi-monthly issues. It was like 8 issues a year at one point. It started out as, and then they went bi-monthly. And then in April of 51, they went to monthly. And that continued. They've published monthly from 55 or 54, I'm not sure. Yeah, 54 until, was it 2009?
Holy shit.
Yeah, when they went quarterly under DC Comics. Now they went.
That's over 50. That's over 50 years, right? I'm not so good at maths,
but
it's
that's about 55 years. That's about 55 years.
Carry
the one.
Yeah.
I need more toes. I only go up to 47.
There you go. Just use your fingers. You're good.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's why they're called digits, SK.
You have 3 of those left, I'm sure.
I don't know. The dogs get hungry.
After the 4th, though, when he gets drunk and starts playing with those dollar store fireworks, he might be only down to 1.
Now, what's interesting about Mad Magazine is it did persevere a lot. It was the most sought after property of EC Comics when EC was absorbed by the Kennington Publishing Company, I believe. Kenny Parking Company. They acquired National Periodicals, aka DC Comics, and Warner Brothers, along with EC Comics. And Warner Brothers came out on top with the name and all of that, obviously. So that's how Warner Brothers acquired DC Comics and Mad Magazine. And that was in the early 60s, before DC Comics ever renamed itself DC Comics. By the end of the decade, William Gaines had been an employee at Kenny Parking Company and became a board member and was permitted to run Mad however he saw fit. So that should kind of tell you.
Whoa.
Sounds like a dream job, doesn't it, SK?
That's kind of like, that should kind of tell you what kind of person Max Gaines was. He was not one of those. He was not one of those people who was going to listen to you tell him how to publish his book.
Well, and he'd been doing pretty good with it, so why would you fuck with that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
True.
You know, you're not wrong. But the thing is like a lot of times that's the reason some of these
executives.
Well, that's the reason some of these magazines and everything die out, because of so much interference with them. People just get involved in these titles that they haven't touched ever, and they're like, we're going to do it our way, and then it kills the product. It's not the same product anymore. It's the reason people get scared, like with a comic book that we looked over a week ago, Usagi Yojimbo, had been in a publisher called Dark Horse Comics for 20 years or more. And then it just moves over to IDW and starts with a new number 1. Like, people get scared when stuff like that happens, because Dark Horse has been doing just fine with Usagi Yojimbo. So when you move
Well,
it, it's not going to be the
well,
same property
yeah.
necessarily.
What happens is, and I've seen this happen firsthand in many cases, is that somebody gets promoted and they feel like they have to make changes to prove their worth, that they're worth that promotion. When in fact, oftentimes the best thing you can do is just wait until you know something.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you've gotten promoted and you can leave everything exactly the same and not have to and have to do actually less than you were doing before, like why wouldn't you just do that?
Why would
Right? Like Kathleen Kennedy taking over Lucasfilm. Just leave it alone. Why would you give Rian Johnson the green light for a script like that? Are you on massive amounts of cocaine?
So
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's weird shit happens in Hollywood. We all know that.
Yeah,
let's see.
Did you know, SK, that Scarlett Johansson, Jennifer Lawrence, and who else did he mention? Are all dudes?
Oh God. Oh God. We're not going there, Aaron. We're not doing that today.
We're not going to blackpill the folks?
No. No. We're gonna talk about Mad Magazine. We're not gonna talk about who's doing
All
who's
right.
not. So
All
See,
right.
you see what's happening here, don't you? Don't you see? This is live stream Mad Magazine. this is an issue of Mad Magazine Live.
yeah. So the cost had increased by 60 cent in April of '78 when the UPC
Master.
had to basically start going on everything that was a magazine so that it could be sold at retail. Well, Mad Magazine answered this in glorious fashion. In 1978, just 4 years after they peaked in selling over 2 million issues per issue in 1974, just 2 years after that, they were forced to start putting giant barcodes on everything. Or not giant, but just regular sized barcode. So they put a giant barcode on the cover of the magazine saying, quote, they hoped it would jam every computer in the country for forcing us to deface our covers with this yucky UPC symbol from now on.
They figured out, oh shit, it can go on the back.
Well, for more than 2 years, subsequent
that
issues.
That took a while, though.
Yeah. Subsequent issues labeled
for everybody.
They labeled the normal sized UPC symbol with a series of humorous captions such as "Close up of the gap in Alfred E. Newman's teeth" or "Hair of man watching horror movie."
I like how it says cheap under 60 cents on the cover.
Yeah, but that was for 54 pages of content. Something like that, 48 to 56 pages of content, depending on what size issue it was.
Page, less than a penny a page,
which is insane.
Yeah,
that's a little more than a penny a page. SK. Remember, carry the one.
This is why I went into computers, so I wouldn't have to do math.
Computers are nothing but math, SK.
Yeah, but they only use two
numbers.
They do the 1 and 0.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
See, I can count to 1.
So let's just talk about that point for a second. 2 million issues per issue going live on the sale. Which spy is SK? He's the white spy with the black glasses.
Oh, I guess the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's both spies. It just depends on what form of dementia he's suffering that day. But no,
All right, 2 million. 2 million.
What?
So I mean, that's a substantial percentage of the households in the country at that time frame. That's a significant. I mean, it's not like half or anything like that, but I mean, for a satire comic book magazine, holy shit!
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I think if you went and compared Playboy's numbers from that time period, they're probably comparable.
You know, that's a good idea.
Well,
look that up. What year are we on?
What, 2009?
74, I think.
Oh. What, for the 2 million?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh, what the hell? Damn Google. Well, you guys keep talking while I look this up.
we haven't talked about the origins of What Me Worry. That's Alfred E. Newman's slogan, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about that, since you've read more Mad Magazine than anybody else here?
You think I know anything? Where did you come up with that idea?
I mean, you did pick the topic. I figured you might know something. You were like, I want to talk about that Mad Magazine thing. Okay, he must know something about Mad Magazine.
He knows that he read it.
Yeah.
So, What Me Worry. That was just the slogan that predated the magazine by 50-something years. He was on Alfred E. Newman was on postcards with "What Me Worry" and I'm.
It was.
Yeah.
So it went with the image from the start. Is
Right.
what you're saying.
Right, and
fascinating.
Yeah, it was apparently for postcards from a dentist who called himself Painless Romine, and he was from Topeka, Kansas. Mad artists were able to rationalize their plagiarism, according to Harvey Kurtzman, after they discovered that Romine himself had lifted the drawing from an illustration in a medical textbook showing a boy who had gotten too much iodine in his system.
So,
is that...
It's so perfect.
Well,
the dentist plagiarized some poor schmuck kid.
Yeah, and then Harvey Kurtzman plagiarized him.
You couldn't plan that.
No, and you couldn't get away with it these days either.
All right, well, so I can't find 1974, but 1975 Playboy sold 5.6 million issues.
So smut still sells.
Okay. Which, it's not, I totally expected Playboy to be more, but to be even in the ballpark is astonishing.
Right. Well, I've talked about this with Ayrton before with sales numbers. Comics that used to come out in the 50s and 60s, man, they would hit those numbers. There used to be a comic book called Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, and it would have adventures of the photographer Jimmy Olsen. And Jimmy Olsen would go out and he would get superpowers, or he would encounter some other superheroes that weren't Superman, or he would get caught up in some kind of bad guy caper. And inevitably, either Superman or somebody else would save him, but he would help in the dismantling of the big bad. But those comics would sell 1.5 million copies easy.
Wow.
Nowadays, if you hit 18, 20,000 on a book, I mean, that's considered okay in some books.
Wow.
Batman does good to hit
Wow.
120,000 on sales. I mean, we're talking Batman making 120,000 sales and that being good numbers. So, and I mean, it does go to the fact that people are more invested in movies and music and TV shows and stuff like that now. But it doesn't actually go to the fact that, you know, it shouldn't have dropped that substantially. Like, people should still be reading magazines unless there's a digital magazine that offers those sales numbers to be, you know, part and parcel. Because there's, you
Yeah.
know, there's something to be
And
said
is it
about reading. Go ahead.
what's interesting is that, theater attendance is dropping, right along with it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's more of
And
well, go ahead. Finish your thought.
well, I just think it's a quality issue to a large extent.
It could be a quality issue, but it could be more or less just that there's so much and so many options out there. Like, I think it's more of a barrier to entry issue as well. Like, theaters, you used to be able to count on filling up a theater on a weekend with date night. You didn't have to worry about a blockbuster movie coming out every other weekend to fill up a theater. Kids just taking their girlfriends and boyfriends to the movies was gonna guarantee you a full theater. So the fact that nowadays people are looking at that, and I mean, obviously you've got hookup culture and all that good stuff, but I mean, you look at the cost of going to the theater. If you're not a student at the local college in my hometown, you're looking at like $13, $14 a ticket, and that's before you get popcorn.
Yep.
You know, you're looking at a $50 date just to go to the movies and get a drink and popcorn.
Well, and up here we have movie theaters that serve liquor.
Oh yeah, and those are what, $20 drinks?
We have some of those too.
Yeah, we have one.
We have those too.
Not quite.
It's what's really cool about those. I mean, they are more expensive, but guess what? No kids.
True. True.
No kids and booze.
I mean, I can see the appeal of that, but as a father, that does nothing for me.
One of these days you will.
as a father of small kids, it does nothing for me right now. Once my kids are out of the house, though, it's going to be great.
But there is another problem with the theater experience, and that is there's people there.
Well, that and like I said, how long does it take a movie to hit Netflix or Hulu, or to be able to spend $5 and watch it in your own home?
Yeah,
digitally.
not much.
You know, how long do you have to wait for the red box? Really? Like how many?
Yeah, I mean,
well, it used to be 6 months after the theatrical release, but that window just keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the movie comes out now, and 2 weeks later, it's out on DVD at Redbox.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of movies here, even on YouTube. You can find movies and you know, we'll circle this back around, but you can find those same movies on YouTube for $2.50, $5. Danielle in the chat calling you out, SK.
Well, it depends on what kind of what their liquor license says.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute, SK.
In my state, they are not allowed in those theaters.
Now wait a minute.
They're over 20.
Are these regular movie theaters or are these Pee Wee Herman theaters? I mean,
these are very special theaters.
But to circle it back around to comic books, like Mad Magazine, it maintained its readership, it maintained its viewer base all through the 70s, and then it just started to curtail off. I mean, it hit a high point that is kind of unfounded. Like, yeah, Playboy sells 5 million issues, but that's Playboy. There's a reason it sold
Yeah,
5
has
million
tits on
issues, and it has to do with airbrushing. But
it.
nobody bought 5 million Playboys to read them. People bought Mad Magazine to read it because during that era, this was before the media had become what it is today. And this kind of segues into another talking point that I had for the book. Mad Magazine offered something that it was really hard to get in this day and age, and that was objective journalism, so to speak. The ability to call a politician who was being an idiot and a liar an idiot and a liar. And Mad did that
They were
before
kind
anybody
of
else
like,
did.
yeah, kind of in a South Park kind of sense. They would skewer anybody.
Yeah. And yeah,
they didn't care who they were or what they believed or what they stood for. If
right.
they wanted to make fun of you, they made fun of you.
Right. And that
Right.
was something that could
And-
be respected. And I think they've kind of lost that in recent time. I don't know if you still read
Like
Mad Magazine, SK,
all media.
Right. But I don't
I
think you
do not. I didn't even know it was still going, frankly.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little while. But yeah, it's still going. In fact, I think
Kelly has a question
what's
in the
that?
chat.
What's that? I think I've already addressed.
She says Mad Magazine was always viewed as
Oh,
fairly
right.
lowbrow when I was growing up. Any thoughts?
We'll start with you then. I'm sorry I did miss that one.
I was too lowbrow to notice.
Well, I was going to say SK was reading it, so obviously that was true.
Right?
Anything considered a. Go ahead.
No, you do. You do.
Oh, okay. Anything considered like a comic book or anything like that. Mad Magazine was looked down on by adults because I think adults were a little harder to bring about to the idea that we're just gonna make fun of this politician you voted for because we caught him lying. It was harder for adults to grasp that before everyone started doing it for everything. During the peak of Mad Magazine,
it also goes back. Like satire in general has always kind of been looked down upon as lowbrow. You look at like Monty Python's Flying Circus, The Simpsons, South Park, like all of those heavy satire shows are always viewed as more lowbrow. So I think it's more of a cultural thing than anything, I would say.
Well, yeah, but you have to look at the time that Mad Magazine was selling even these huge high numbers, even though it was considered lowbrow. And you look at the fact that you had the Cold War going on back in the 70s. You had all kind of propaganda coming through the U.S. and the media and everything else, and Mad Magazine was the one place that was free of all that. So it probably got a lot more shunned because of that than anything else, I would think.
Yeah, and people, the whole concept of highbrow, lowbrow is the kind of bullshit that people get really tired of.
Well, it's all objective too. Like it's all in your objectivity. Like if you don't like it, then it's lowbrow according to you. But who gives you the right to pick that for anybody else?
Yeah, it's like one of our guests on the other podcast made a good point. He called himself a snob over one particular topic, and I don't even remember what it was. And he defined snobbery versus, let's say, a connoisseur.
Connoisseur.
A snob is a snob is somebody who thinks they know what you should like.
Yeah.
and you know what? People get really tired of that shit.
Yeah.
They don't like to be told by people they consider to be snobs, what they should or shouldn't like.
That's a good
And
point.
Well, no,
and
and
it can actually drive people towards the thing that the snobs are trying to get you away from.
isn't
You're
that
like,
called like the Streisand
I'm not
effect?
supposed to like this.
Isn't that called like the Streisand effect or something?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because who the fuck would like Barbara Streisand, but she's got an effect named after her?
I mean, I think that might just be because she's what's the word I'm looking for? Cunt, I believe.
That's
The
a technical term.
The opinions of Ayrton and SK do not reflect the opinions of the Gospel of Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't leave. I'll fire all.
Are
I don't
people
care.
still watching?
I don't know. Probably. But yeah, you'd mentioned that you didn't know it was still going. Mad Magazine is one of the longest running magazines of its. It is the longest running magazine of its genre, hands down. I think the only thing that was being published around the time of Mad Magazine that's still being published were Detective Comics and Action Comics. First appearance of Batman and Superman for the layman's in the audience and the panel. But yeah, Batman and Superman were pretty much the only thing that will outlive Alfred E. Newman. Little cockroach of a motherfucker.
It's not Newman himself so much as what he represents. If we're going to get snobby.
What, 80 years of theft? 80 years of artistic theft? My image, my worldview is shattered. But no, like I was talking about the publication history, Mad started out in 52 at 8 issues a year. It quickly moved to quarterly, and then, or not quarterly, it quickly moved to monthly, and then until issue 500, it moved from monthly to quarterly. So that was in 2009. So well over, 57 years of publishing of a monthly magazine.
Wow.
Jeez.
And then it moved to quarterly.
That's
but
astonishing.
this also killed two of the offshoots that it had spawned, Mad Kids and Mad Classic. So now we saw the issue that was, I've got it up still.
Mad Kids sounds like just a bad idea.
It sounds like a mental asylum for children.
But
the reason I say it sounds like a bad idea is because, like, this is something that would have occurred somewhere in the 2000s when that was created. I'm guessing.
What, Mad Kids?
Yeah,
probably. So I just
sometime when they, it would have been. What I'm saying is it would have been. It would have started up in well into the PC era, where they couldn't do anything really interesting for the kids, and it would have been just stupid.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I don't know that I understood exactly what you were trying to say there. Either, though.
I think the people making the magazine would have been too constrained by popular cultural
references for kids.
Yeah, well, not cultural references, but they would have had to been a lot more careful about the kinds of things that they put in the magazine compared to,
Yeah, but that had been happening
The
for
original
ages.
magazine.
Well, I mean, that had been happening for ages. I mean, Mad Magazine ceased to be what it was when it lost its editor and it lost its publisher. Like by the time they both stepped down and were done, and it changed hands 2 or 3 times, it was like a bad game of telephone. And I think that had a lot to do with the drop in viewership and readership. Like just overall the magazine, not just the one for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, the people who have that genius, it's the same thing that happened at National Lampoon, right?
National Lampoon, Monty Python, stand-up comedy as a whole.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything that was fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, the fucking self-censorship killed George Carlin. Oh, man. We have a request to talk about a manga artist from 1950, or that was born in 57 in Japan in the chat. I have to put it on the list.
Is that...
Rumiko,
I have no idea who that person is.
Takahashi. Rumiko Takahashi. I have to put it on the list. Give me a minute. No, we were talking about the publication history. Now, once Mad went quarterly, it ran for another 50 issues up until issue 550. Once it hit issue 550, it renumbered and relaunched under a new number 1 for the first time in its publication history.
Why?
Probably to boost sales.
Yeah, marketing gimmick.
Yeah, same. DC. It's owned by DC Comics, and that's something that DC regularly will do to boost the sale of a comic book and try and drum up interest. Most comic companies will do that. I think we're on like what?
Does it work?
Not anymore. It used to.
Wow.
I mean, Batman. Like, there's good reason to do it. Like when a universe reboots in comic books, and I know this is an aside from Mad Magazine, but when a universe reboots in comic books, say we just had in 2015, Marvel did the Secret Wars event for the third time, and this time it reformed.
Not really secret anymore.
Oh no. I'm going to get into that too, since this is the Mad Magazine episode, and this is an episodic version of Mad Magazine. I'm going to take this tangent on a tangent. Let's talk about the name Secret Wars, okay? Secret Wars was picked. The comic company Marvel Comics picked the name Secret Wars because a toy company, I believe it was Mattel, had came to them and said, "Hey, we want to do a toy line of all your popular heroes, but we need you to make a comic book with all your popular heroes in it to sell the line." So they said, okay. And then they did whatever it's called when you survey random groups of people to see what words work and for advertising. You know what I'm talking about? Market surveys, I guess it's called.
Yep.
They did a market survey, and they found out that the words that people liked for comic book titles the most were secret and war.
So they just...
Yep.
How do you argue against that?
So they called the book The Secret War, and then they basically gave the team that was writing and drawing the book the name, and they said, we need characters in it. And half the characters that were in it didn't have toys, and half the toys weren't in the book. But it worked. It was the best-selling book at the time at Marvel. Like, it was fantastic, and it led to a spinoff, which led to another spinoff in 2015, which relaunched the Marvel Universe. When the Marvel Universe relaunched after the end of the event, everything started back with the new number 1. because everything was the same but slightly different. It was a chance to tell new origin stories. It was a chance to retcon things that had gone all out of whack, like this fucking show.
Join us when I get back for episode 1.
That is correct.
Yeah, isn't that weird though? Every time they reboot the universe,
Kelly.
it's like it's completely different, but horribly familiar.
Oh yeah, no, Kelly, he's definitely joking. And Ayrton, you're fired for calling one of our audience members a Nazi. Not allowed.
I was calling multiple of our audience members Nazis. It's plural.
Well, stop doing that.
I wasn't singling her out.
Oh well, now you're fired for 2 episodes. How about that?
Damn
Which happened to coincide when you're going to be on vacation, and they come on the show still anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say, exile him to Peru.
I'm gonna come back with like a huge ass beard down to my belt buckle.
That's right. You were gone a week,
like a
dude.
cloak.
What the hell? You know you're really good at archery.
I mean, I already am pretty good at archery.
She's okay with you being fired.
Oh man!
But no,
I forgot where we were. Where were we?
no, you got to stop calling
It sounds
people
like
Nazis.
you typically. You're not used to this kind of show format.
Who, me?
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand. It sounds like you want things like you expect you have a plan and shit.
I've just started drinking straight from the bottle at this point. It's fine. It'll all fall into place.
There we go.
Oh, we're at the end of your show notes.
No, we're not. No, we're not. We skipped.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
You know what they say though. No podcast plan survives first contact with Jameson.
This isn't first contact.
Is that an old adage?
Anyway.
Yeah, and it's been from the beginning.
No. The magazine relaunched with the #1 in the June 2018 issue. That coincided with the magazine's headquarters moving to the West Coast, if you want a reason for it. It still remains the final standing member of the original EC Comics line. So, I mean, I guess there's something to be that, but with weird tales and, horror stories or whatever, you're not going to keep titles like that alive for as long, especially because they were too broad in the sense. So you couldn't keep up with which one was put out by which publisher, and they weren't sequential, so there was no reason to need to read #2 if you missed it. Mad Magazine was something special, though. It caught a spark with a lot of people.
And I'll tell you why it's in real trouble right now, and that is you cannot do satire if you refuse to go after certain members of popular culture. If you just say, this segment of the popular culture universe are immune to satire, then you're dead.
Well, not even that. Like, there are some veins of people that if you try and do satire, give it a couple months and it becomes reality. So,
well, that's true.
Well,
and I mean, like, how far do you have to push the satire where they don't end up actually doing what you just said?
Yeah. Society has almost become unsatirable, if that's a word.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't. Everything's offensive now. Stephen Fry said it best, I believe. Oh, you're offended. So fucking what?
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And
Go ahead.
we had this discussion on Dead Man's Tome about you know about being offended, and my personal position is, who said you had the right to live an unoffended life?
Right.
Who said you have the right to go throughout your entire life with nobody offending you? Well, they lied, because you don't.
That's a good
Right.
point.
Um, we have a request in the chat to talk about the fold in. Um, that's the back cover that would make the if you split it apart, I believe, or was it you had to fold it in to make the image? How did that work?
Oh, the trifold cover thing.
Right,
Back
you had to.
cover. It
Yeah,
was.
you had to unfold it to
Oh
see
God, I
it. Right.
forgot about that. Yeah, you fold it out and it's one image, and then you fold it back in on itself into thirds, and it's a different image. Oh,
Right.
those were genius.
Yeah, they apparently were a feature found in basically every Mad magazine since 1964. Explaining the original inspiration, Al Jaffe said that
Yeah.
Playboy had a fold out of a beautiful woman in each issue. Life magazine, Life magazine had large striking fold outs in which they'd show how the Earth. I'll wait. See what you did, Kelly. This is on you. I still love you though. Please don't leave.
I never would. I never would. That.
You
That's
guys
brilliant.
good? You okay? You got it? Need your inhaler?
Oh yeah.
Anybody? Blood pressure medication? Diabetes
Yeah,
socks?
we're totally mature.
Jesus Christ.
On my
Playboy had a
driver's
fold out of a
license.
beautiful woman in each issue, and Life magazine had a large striking fold outs in which they'd show how the Earth began or the solar system or something in that order. Some massive panorama. Many magazines were hopping on the bandwagon, offering a similar full color spread for the readers. I noticed this and thought, what's a good satirical comment on the trend? And then I figured, why not reverse it? If other magazines are doing these big, colorful foldouts, well, cheap old Mad should go the complete opposite direction and do an ultra modest black and white fold in. In 2011, he reflected, the thing I got a kick out of was Jeopardy! Showed a fold in. The contestants all came up with the word they were looking for, which was fold in. So I realized I created an English language word. So that's pretty much how that went down. It was created as a
The satire.
yeah it was a
Oh,
joke.
that's
Yeah, it was a satire about the actual fold out practices of like Playboy and other magazines at the time. So fantastic.
wow. Brilliant.
Mad
Brilliant.
Magazine actually transcended so many things of its time. It talked about the credibility gap before anybody even knew what that was, talking about how you should question everything. As children, you should question adults. As adults, you should question the government. And if you're reading this magazine, you should also question this fucking magazine. Um, that was their that was their goal. They wanted you to think for yourself. They didn't want you to believe everything you read. And I feel like once they kind of started to get away from that message and
hmm
like everything in true time, politics overtook it. I think that
hmm
really in the late 90s, early 2000s. And even, going further into the future with the Iraq War under the Bush administration and the way that everything just kind of like nobody really took a second look when they dropped all over Trump. But if you look back at that time, there wasn't as much of a focus on what a scumbag Hillary was as well. There wasn't as much of a focus on anything that, any of the left did. And you could just kind of see personal editorial politics of DC Comics at that time starting to come out. And, again, it could just be that Trump was the funniest thing to make fun of. I'll give him that. But, to see a comic or a magazine or anything like that that just had such a long-standing history of just being well received and respected and credible to go down the pipe like it has, it's a tragedy because Mad is a national treasure. No problem, Kelly. Anytime.
It's a national treasure. So there's a copy on the back of the Constitution.
Yes.
Actually, the Constitution was a feature of Mad Magazine issue number 4, I believe.
And Nicolas Cage has every single issue from issue 1 framed in his house.
Undoubtedly.
He's going to play Alfred E. Newman in the live-action movie.
I couldn't have cast it any better myself.
So that's pretty much all the talking
The
points
bees
that I had for the main magazine itself. There were a lot of interesting things that I wanted to kind of delve into. Like, one thing. Well, I know it's okay. I'm getting there. One thing that I really thought was interesting was how the magazine shifted from an actual comic book to a magazine format. Not the actual, size and shape and everything, but how we got to, well, basically, you remember that issue that I pulled up at the beginning of the show, that issue number 1. I've still got it up. I can show it again. How do we get from this, where we have something, stuff like that? And let's be completely honest, this wouldn't fly today. Buxom girl, alone, horror style comic, supposed to be funny, Hitler mask on the cover. I mean, they got away with some shit. I think I have a recent issue here. Here we go. Here's the issue 550.
SK, isn't that what the girl looks like who you keep in your basement? And don't you have a Hitler mask like hanging from the ceiling next to her?
No. I got the Stalin mask.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Because the Jerry Lewis was too scary.
So this is issue 550. And actually, I'm glad I brought this up because it brings up something else that I wanted to talk about. You see that first ad page there on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, rather. Mad presents Superman and the Miserable, Rotten, No Fun, Really Bad Day.
Could be good. It's a good concept.
Well, no. I like that the false advertisement's all right on the front of the book. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's 100% unauthorized parody. Yeah, I'm sure it's unauthorized, and DC totally didn't sue you for it because they loved you so much. But how do we get from that comic book style that we just saw to this? Like, I'll pull up a interior page so that I can kind of make note of it. But yeah, I mean, how do we come from that? Like, what happens in the social parameters of the world? Like, does just becoming a magazine do this to your book? Because I've seen magazine formatted comics before.
Mm-hmm.
I just did you. What I'm getting at, because you read these books in their heyday, like were they still more comic books or were they more magazines by then?
Oh, definitely more comic book. It was all black and white interior.
Okay.
And it was comic artwork at best. Some of them were just
Doodles.
barely more than line drawings, and some actual, as Kelly points out, some actual little doodle cartoons in the margins and shit.
Almost like the messages in Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Which is fantastic.
Oh yeah, newspaper comics. We talked a little bit about that on our Platinum Aid episode. Not necessarily the regulations, Kelly, but we talked about newspaper clippings and how they really took a backseat almost to comic books when comic books started coming out, but they never really changed. There are even still some newspaper like comic strips that have been ongoing for almost 100 years.
But like you said one time, they're doing a lot of repeat, right?
Oh yeah, they definitely went into syndication. But yeah, I mean, the Mad magazines that I saw were a little bit more of an even split between this magazine garbage that we have now and an actual comic book with some articles and a few letters in it or whatever.
Yeah, they had these classic recurring bits in there. Spy versus Spy, as Kelly mentioned, was a very famous one. And all of a sudden, I blanked out on all of them. But yeah, shit.
It'll come to you.
Yeah.
Don't hurt yourself though.
I haven't thought about.
Apparently, so.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. The only thing I can do about that is reset the internet and that'll kill the stream. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of recoup from it. What the hell? I blame one of you.
This is why I like having guests, because I don't always get singled out for the blame. It's usually just like one of you I'm gonna blame. I don't know yet.
All right, we should be back now. I don't know what it was. Apparently, my CPU decided to start eating itself a little bit.
Huh. Well, man, if I could do that.
Well, my ego's been eating itself for years now. I mean, that's the only thing big enough to substantiate it. But no, I like how it just kind of went from a small comic book of meager beginnings. I think we're what, 30-something pages, to a magazine in 2018 with 60-something pages.
Mm-hmm.
And went from 10 cents to $6 an issue over the course of 60 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, over the course of 60 years. And in the grand scheme of things, it really lost a lot of its luster.
Do you have that in that inflation calculator up still?
I can pull it back up.
That'd be interesting to
Yeah.
To look at again.
Just looking at this in these interior pages, and I'm just going, it's
Depressing,
not
isn't it?
compelling to me at all. It's not interest. There's nothing interesting going on here. And the comic drawing, the artwork for the old magazine, it was, a lot of it was really over the top caricatures, and so just looking at a page, your eye would be drawn to stuff. And here there's a 2-page spread, and there's nothing all that visually interesting going on.
So in 1952, if an item cost 10 cents, it would cost 97 cents in 2019.
Jeez.
Now let's just take into consideration that the size is doubled. So we'll call it $2 instead of $1. And now it's in color. So let's just even call it $3. We're still at double what it should cost.
Yeah. And the circulation numbers continue to drop.
Right. So the price keeps going up and up and up just to, warrant the printing of the damn book.
Listen, I'm not. Are Mad magazines, are old issues hard to come by?
No. Mad Magazine.
So you can just go to a comic book store and just go in and find some old issues.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot at my old comic store. I have a few old issues of Mad Magazine.
Or even like those vintage bookstores or like book resale stores. I see them there a lot too.
Let me just do this. We'll just eBay.com. Live on air, folks.
All those guys.
Yeah, we'll do this live on air, folks. We'll just go eBay.com, Mad Magazine.
Because just spitballing, why not? Fuck it, just start over. Just reissue everything from the start.
There's a lot of 15 of them on there for $30. Buy it now. Mad issue number 46, $1.04 with 2 bids and $7 shipping.
Jeez.
$4, buy it now. 35 issues. Yeah. $5 bid with $18 shipping.
Jesus.
19 issues, $20. No, they're not hard to come by. 14 issues, $8. 3 bids. 61, $1 a piece, $8 shipping.
So, sir, I'm kind of serious. Just fuck this new digital bullshit magazine color shit, and just start reprinting the old ones.
Well, they need to print the old ones in digital. They need to make the library available to young people.
There you go.
I think that Kelly's onto something. Like, a lot of this stuff needs to go digital, and a topic that we're going to talk about later on. There used to be a magazine called Wizards Magazine, and it was for high fantasy people who really, really liked Lord of the Rings and comic books. So it would have some articles in it, and it eventually became the comic book price guide. It's found at home, and for a long time it was the go-to. Well, yeah, it's the older they are, the more they're worth. Obviously, I think the highest sold value one is obviously Mad #1. It was like what, $4,000?
Yeah,
something like that.
So, but no, I think these books need to go digital. I think that reprinting the older ones in digital would do a lot for the industry, but we also need to take into consideration that people just aren't reading as much anymore. And I've had this problem for a long time. I read a local newspaper website, and they have gotten to the point where they don't even use the word pled when they're talking about, criminal cases and whatnot anymore. They say pleaded.
Why?
Because
What?
yeah, well, either one is technically correct, but one is more of a third grade reading level, and that's what a newspaper lowers itself down to now. They don't want to confuse their readers. Whereas
Jeez.
whereas comic
Wow.
books for the longest time, like they use a higher vernacular, they use a better vocabulary. They make you get your fucking thesaurus out and learn what that new word means.
Yeah. You know, newspapers used to be a place you would actually go to learn shit.
Yeah, well,
Unless it's the Daily Mail.
but
Oh, I learn a lot from them.
well, nowadays, man, it's all about being able to retain readership, and you're not going to be able to do that with a population that's becoming. No offense to anybody in the chat or anybody that doesn't like to read or anything like that, but the population, I'll bet, becoming dumber and dumber by the day. We put so much of an emphasis on being a rock star or a sports star or something like that people just aren't reading anymore, and they're not reading for fun because they're not reading to learn anything. So why would they read for fun if they're not going to read to excel? That's one of the major issues. I
Yeah.
think that beyond that, like obviously there's a cost barrier issue because I've gone on the tangent a million times about how $5 for a comic book is just fucking unruly. But you can't expect people to get into something like Mad Magazine if you don't expect people to read. Um, it's been a long time since, and I'm about to have to get back into it with my oldest kids going into elementary school. But when I was a kid, we had something called the Accelerated Reader Program where they would reward us the more we read. And then it slowly but surely tapered off by the time you got to high school, but you still read because you were a fucking dork.
or because you didn't want to be an idiot.
Well,
I kind of joking about that, but it's
yeah, yeah. Well,
some people actually didn't want to be morons.
Well, yeah. Well, somebody like me, I never got into the nonfiction side of things. Like I used books and comic books and different stories as a way to escape. That was for lack of a better term, that was my drug of choice, so to speak. When I was a kid, I didn't want to. I mean, now I drink liquor, but I still read comic books. Right. And just to touch on what Kelly said, she said people want short, sharp hits of nicely bundled reading material, it seems. And they want those short, sharp hits of nicely bundled reading material to deliver dopamine because it agrees with them. People can't handle ideas that are different from their own anymore. And that's sad. That's what we have to get past, because we're never going to have truly apolitical anything until people can deal with having to look somebody in the eye and saying, I disagree with you and I don't hate you for it.
Right. Listen. I've said this many times, but this will be a first on this show. If your belief system, if your beliefs cannot stand up in the face of disagreement, you don't really believe them very strongly.
What do you mean?
What I mean is if you come up against somebody who disagrees with your beliefs and it wrecks your world to have somebody disagree, your beliefs aren't stapled on very well.
No, if they can't, if you can't handle having anyone disagree with you, and that's that. I'm talking about adults here. I've seen kids.
Yeah, I
I've
know.
seen 13 and 14-year-old kids able to debate one another on a more sportsmanlike ground than grown adults can. Like we saw the crap that happened in Portland this weekend, and I'm not going to get into that because this isn't the kind of show that is. But we all saw it. It's been everywhere, and with that, like people can't deal with Mad Magazine telling them they're fucking idiots anymore, which is why Mad Magazine doesn't sell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad state to be in, honestly. It's the reason that I wanted to put comics back into the mainstream conversation. I've already fired him, Becky. I actually fired him for 2 whole shows. He's retro fired. Yeah, I worked in one too for a few years, and it is impossible to sell a comic book to a kid. I mean, Alterna comics are probably your best bet because they're age appropriate and they have a cost basis that you can give a kid 3 books and have him walk out for the same $5 that he spent on a pack of Pokemon cards.
Now, can we, along with a how many times I've been fired counter, we should get a how many times we've shilled Alterna counter.
Oh man, yeah. I think Peter Cimetti. I think Peter Cimetti should give us some kickbacks. Just sponsor us. If you're listening,
I would say so.
If you're listening, Peter Cimetti. I mean, I've already made my co-host start to buy your comics. I get your comics brought into my shop and buy them. Hook us up, man.
That's true. Unit 44 is amazing.
But SK getting tired.
Are we still going?
You can at least mute yourself if you're going to do that, SK.
It was intentional. I think he's just tired of hearing us talk about comic books.
On the comic book show.
That's right.
Listen, just don't feel bad because starting in like 7th grade, one of my major efforts every day in school was to get my teachers derailed from their topic of choice for the day.
Oh,
imagine my shock.
Yeah, you've done nothing but since you came on this show, but somehow we've gotten through it. I was just going to ask, was it getting close to your bedtime? Do we need to give you your castor oil and send you to bed? Get you in your diabetes socks and off to bed with your nightcap on.
Why do socks have diabetes?
I don't know. I'm not old.
No, they're diabetes socks. They're like.
Don't explain the joke, Ayrton.
We'll see if he read as much as he says he does. He would know what they are.
He knows what diabetes socks are. He's just being an asshole.
Congratulations, SK. I think that's the first time Church has called a guest an asshole.
He's not a guest. He's part of the podcast family.
I thought you were going to say an infestation.
Well, that's you.
Yeah. Pestilence is definitely important.
But yeah, with over 60 years of publishing, Mad Magazine. I think the next time we talk about it, we should talk about more of the interiors than the exteriors of the book. But I think we touched on all the interesting parts of the history. There's definitely more things that happened, especially with the staff and everything like that. But God, that would be a series in and of itself.
Yeah.
So,
True.
But I definitely appreciated it. Go ahead.
I was going to say this has been a lot of fun and educational as well. I learned a lot about the magazine because honestly, before we started looking into this, I was just a consumer of the magazine a long time ago, even.
Yeah.
And so this has been great.
Well, I grew up watching the show, and let me just tell you, having looked through as many like just clips and snippets from this magazine as I have, I really wish I was in your shoes and had grown up reading the magazine as opposed to watching the show, because the show was shit. To be completely fair, like it was just all toilet humor at the grand scheme of things. The best thing about it was Spy versus Spy.
Yeah. Well, hard to beat those guys. They were always blowing each other up.
Well, they really gave an homage to the classic coffee and cigarette style comic book. Or a cartoon animation, rather, where you would just stay up all night animated, drinking coffee and snorting cocaine and smoking cigarettes. In that order.
Right. Yeah.
Cream your coffee with cocaine.
Yeah, this.
Isn't that just Red Bull?
That explains so much. But yeah, no, I definitely appreciated you bringing it up. We'll have to have you back on at some point to talk about Matt again, because, like I said, there's a lot that I want to delve into, and now that I have all the research material that I need.
So, where does National Lampoon fall in the comic book world?
I don't know that National Lampoon ever really was a big deal in comic books.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
I mean, because they were kind of, God, and now I'm trying to remember. Was it even a fucking comic? I don't know.
It was. I just don't know that it was ever a big deal. It was started in '74, so Mad Magazine definitely lapped it a few times.
Yeah.
But it was the paperback book, an anthology of comics. I don't know. It never really made a big wave.
Okay.
So let's see.
Yeah, they did a few interesting things for a little while, and then they imploded.
Yeah, it was very by the seat of the pants.
Then most of the talent was stolen by Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Literally.
Now, one thing that I can really call out your old card on is I had been talking to Ayrton about these, but there used to be Partridge Family comics.
What? Why?
Because there was a comic for everything back in the day.
Did the Monkees have a comic book?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
I think I even have an old Monkees comic book.
Oh, my God. I would, well, to be honest, I'd rather have a Monkees comic book than a Partridge Family one.
Rumiko is not going to be next, per se, but I will start doing research on it, and it will be coming up. Like I said, it takes a little while to get these episodes together, but we will be talking about her eventually. If you want to DM me on Twitter or give me some titles or something to look at so that we can have some stuff to put up on the screen while we talk about it, that'll be good. Sorry about that, guys. Kelly was talking about Rumiko in the chat, and I was like, I don't know that that's going to be next, especially not without Ayrton here. I don't, I don't even think I'm going to be inviting SK back next week, but
he's going to show up.
He's just going to wander in all like old and confused. Oh, no problem.
Is this the bingo game?
Is this the boxing game? But
He's gonna
Bingo
have
match.
He's gonna have a 40 on a trench coat with a beanie cap on.
right, and nothing else.
Yeah.
How did you know it was a 40?
Of malt liquor, SK.
Oh, that. Yeah. Also that.
Anyway, before we get completely struck down, I think that about does it, ladies and gentlemen. You guys got any final thoughts?
No, I'm surprised I made it up for the whole show, but I'm definitely going to bed right after this.
Well, there you go.
Thanks for hanging around and dividing the attention so I didn't have to get it all.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this was fun. It's sad that Mad Magazine's dying on the vine, but they're fucking doing it to themselves. That's all I gotta say.
I mean, all print media is. You can't really.
Well, some people are doing it faster than others. I mean, there's the economics of it, but then there's the content side. That's what I mean.
Oh yeah, well, I think eventually all good things must come to an end, and it's for the best because it's almost like the cheesy ass quote in that old Batman movie. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I think that rings true to most print media, comic books and magazines included. Like, you either die in your heyday, like you either just go out while you're on top, or that inevitable decline hits.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Very likely.
But
all right,
Ayrton, you got anything before you go on vacation? People don't hear from you for a week because the show will go on.
It will.
Next week, Saturday, Atomic Denny. Sunday to be determined. If you want to jump in on the Sunday show, just shoot me a message, and we'll see what's going on. If nothing else, I will see if Becky and Jesse can join us again, and maybe even SK, and we'll talk about the extrapolary volumes of Lock and Key and Hill House Publishing would be a good topic.
There you go.
Yeah, if you got a minute, SK, after the show, I might jump on and talk to you about that real quick.
Sure.
But for now, I'm going to go ahead and start the outro and play everybody out. Any last questions in the chat I'll address?
Maybe we should have SK back to do the Monkeys comic review.
Well,
only if he'll also
family.
Only if he'll also do the NWA comic.